So I always talk about strategic alliances in governance. And this brings me to the issue of Pan-Africanism. Some people believe that Africa can never really unite because we're too different. We have too many cultures, we speak too many languages, we have too many identities. And let's look at what happened in the AFCON matches with the hostility from Morocco and some Algerian players. We can also see the unending xenophobic attacks by Black South Africans. With all this divide, how can we truly unite as one Pan-Africa? All of this brings me to this conversation. Yes, Africa is diverse, deeply, beautifully, complicatedly diverse. But you know what other nations are diverse? The United States, Europe, and Asia. So can we continue to use our diversity as an excuse for our inability to self-regulate and to be united towards a common good? Today on Mindfulness with ASJ, we'll be discussing Pan-Africanism, the true cost of power, and the politics of strategy. The problem with Pan-Africanism isn't our diversity, no. The problem is how we approach unity. And to fix that, we have to start with the mind. Every society is made up of the ideologies of its people, and as a result, every society goes through various mental stages. First, there is the oppressed or suffering mind. Every society has gone through that. Even the world power once suffered. Then there is the learning mind. Every society should go through this because you have to find out what is your suffering and how to remove yourself from that suffering. And finally, the strategic mind. This is where society starts to play for actual power. So an oppressed mind focuses on pain. They never grow past their suffering and they stay in a defeated mindset, always looking for who to blame for their failures, but never taking charge of their own destiny. This is where I believe the average xenophobic South African belongs. Now, a learning mind focuses on understanding the true cause of their failures and how they got to the point they are in. This level of mental growth is great in identifying issues, but doesn't always translate to them being ready to solve the issues that they've identified. Now, a strategic mind focuses on positioning. Such people have grown past complaining over issues identified and moved towards actual problem-solving strategies. This is what separates the developed nations from others. They identify and take action quickly. In fact, their trauma has taught them to think of risk mitigating strategies decades in advance, so they provide solutions for problems that have not even yet risen. Most African countries historically has lived too long in the first stage or in the second. Yes, slavery happened. Yes, the apartheid happened. Yes, colonialism happened. And yes, exploitation happened and still is happening. That history is real. But hear me clearly. History should inform you, not imprison you. Because the story you keep telling yourselves eventually becomes the ceiling that you live under. If your dominant narrative is, we are oppressed people and they're always taking from us, then you're subconsciously, you prepare yourselves to always be reacting and never deciding. The world does not reward reaction. The world rewards strategy, attack. The global system is not sentimental. It operates like a survival arena. Those who think long-term win. Those who build systems win. Those who understand power win. And if Africa wants to sit at the table where global decisions are being made, not as guests, but as contributors, we must start studying how power thinks and not resenting it, but studying it truly. So let me put it this way. If someone consistently outperforms you, there are only two options. You either complain forever or you learn how they are winning. This is something the Americans, Europeans, and the Asian world understood early. They understood the power of social-political ideologies, strategic alliances, economic power, and true independence. That's why they were able to create structures to dominate their colonies for the development of their own people. And to be honest, you can't even blame them for that. Look at Switzerland. One of the poorest countries in Europe is now one of the richest countries in the world, simply by adopting a novel economic strategy. Africa is still suffering from mental slavery because we haven't learned how to harness our economic strength, the strength of our natural resources, our population, and our potential Pan-African alliances. Greed, fear, and a lack of authentic educational structure has kept Africa limited. And until the average African wakes up to this reality, then development will remain a far dream. The Western and Asian strategic alliances have evolved over time to suit their developing strategic goals of economic and military coalition, from the Berlin Conference to EU to NATO, from the Arab League to the Gulf Cooperation Council to MENA and much more. All these alliances weren't formed because everyone was identical. They were formed because people shared interests, values, and goals. And those alliances evolved as their goals evolved. Now, here is where my suggestion comes in for solving this problem we have in Africa. African countries need to start looking inward. What are the unique variables each country has to develop itself and contribute to the larger Pan-African group? Educate your people on its unique history and potentials. Don't be stuck in the past. Create an enabling environment for patriotic, educated citizens to contribute to the greater economic development of their nations. Africa often misses the mark in trying to force one massive Pan-African ideology across over 50 countries at the same time, regardless of political reality, economic or social readiness. And that's not unity, that's unnecessary pressure. So let's think about it. What if the future of Pan-Africanism isn't forced togetherness, but strategic alignment? What if, instead of trying to move the whole continent at once, Africa should focus on cells? And I'll explain further. Having smaller clusters of countries with similar ideologies, similar political visions, and shared economic goals. We're already seeing examples of this, especially with parts of the Sahel. This is when smaller groups align deeply in education, trade, infrastructure, and security. They become strong, and strength speaks louder than speeches. Influence spreads through results and not just conversations. When smaller alliances succeed, others don't need to be convinced. They would want to join. Growth becomes organic. As the saying goes, he who is faithful in little will be faithful in much. So maybe Pan-Africanism isn't about everyone moving together in this large group. Maybe it's about every country first asking these questions. Who are we? What do we believe? What ideology drives our future? And then aligning with others who share the same vision. Maybe the future of Pan-Africanism isn't one voice, but many aligned voices moving intentionally, strategically, and unapologetically forward. So instead of forcing our other African brothers to align with one Pan-African view, countries of like minds should start collaborating together. So unity doesn't have to be loud, but it has to be effective. Do you agree with this school of thought? Get in the comment section and let me know what you think. Thank you for walking this journey with me. All my love, ASJ.